Okay, so again on paper 2, questions 4 and question 5 were answered quite poorly by everybody in the group on the whole. And I think it's not necessarily to do with people's understanding. I think it's to do with their ability to apply their understanding to an exam technique. So one thing I think is really important on these two particular questions is the command word. Okay, so you can see the command word in this question is explain, and that means to give a justification or an example which must be linked. And the part that says which must be linked I think is really important. It makes it easier to answer this question. So if we look at question 4 to begin with, okay, so it asks us to give an example which must be linked, and it says in there one way that smoking can impact negatively on health and well-being. The part that you're going to link smoking to and the impact to is the health and the well-being. Okay, and I think people then struggle a little bit. So when it asks you to link that, what it might want you to do is actually name something that could happen to somebody's health or well-being as a result of them smoking. So for example, if you knew somebody who smoked 30-40 cigarettes a day for 30-40 years, there is a good chance that they might get lung cancer. Okay, so that would be something that I would be linking my answer to. Alright, that is something to do with health and well-being. Okay, so I know that lung cancer can be caused by smoking. You might also know of many different diseases that are to do with health and well-being that is affected by smoking, and you might have put that down there. Okay, so we know that it's worth as well. We know that the question is worth 3 marks. Alright, so let's say we've identified something that smoking can have an impact on health and well-being, and we're saying that's lung cancer on this one. I'm then going to need to start saying a little bit more about lung cancer, and in particular how smoking can have an impact on it. Alright, so what I might want to do is then expand and say how smoking could cause that to happen. Okay, so how smoking could cause that to happen, and I then might want to start saying a little bit more and expanding on that for my 3rd mark. And sometimes when I want to expand, using words like therefore or due to are quite nice ways to then link what you're saying and expand a little bit more on that. So again, if we start thinking about that same sort of way that we are trying to explain for a 3-mark question to question number 5, okay, it might help us to get a better idea about what to do. And so again, the question is explain, that means give a justification or an example which must be linked. Oh, and it says in the next bit using an example. So use an example which must be linked how vitamins or minerals, so one of them, vitamins or minerals, can help David's tennis performance. Right, so that to me says that I've got to be given an example of a vitamin or a mineral and how that might help David's tennis performance. So I'm linking it to his tennis performance. So number 1, I would name a vitamin or a mineral. One specific vitamin or one specific mineral. Might get me 1 mark. 2nd mark, what might I do then in order to then try and link it to David's tennis performance? Okay, well first of all I might have just mentioned a vitamin like vitamin C, vitamin D, or I might have mentioned a mineral. Alright, I'd then want to give a description of that vitamin or mineral that I've mentioned, about its role or what it actually does. Okay, so for my 2nd mark I might just talk about the role of that vitamin or that mineral that I've done. Now at the minute I still haven't linked that to David's tennis performance. I've just named it and given a role. So the last bit I've definitely got to link that to how it can help David's tennis performance. Alright, so you need to think about them. Let's say you've mentioned a particular vitamin, you've said exactly what it does. That could be to anybody in the world, whether they're a tennis player, whether they don't do any sport whatsoever. You then need to link it to a tennis performance. Okay? And when you're linking it to a particular type of performance, you want to normally you want to say how it has a positive effect on, in this case, David's tennis performance. And don't forget, it doesn't just have to be related to his actual playing of a game. It can be related to the fact that he might be able to train a little bit more, which then could help him in a game. Alright? So have a little think about trying to do those questions again, please.